Afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 11 o'clock. You're with GB News right across the UK tonight, and in a moment, headliners. First, let's bring you right up to date with the latest headlines. And in his first visit to Scotland as Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak is holding talks with First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. The two leaders are expected to touch on a range of issues, including the NHS and the cost of living. He's also going to be seeking to discuss Miss Sturgeon's push for Scottish independence. They're due to make a joint announcement on their plans for government funding tomorrow. News in the last hour, and Boris Johnson, it's been revealed, has received £1 million in a single donation. That's one of the biggest ever to a UK politician. Parliamentary records show the money from a crypto investor called Christopher Harborne was set up after he left Downing Street. Mr Harborne is a former Tory party donor who financed the Brexit party in 2019. And also breaking news this evening, more than 70,000 staff at nearly every UK university will strike for almost 3 weeks in February and March. The University and College Union says its members are demanding better pay, conditions and pensions. They're looking for a pay rise above the 4 to 5% increase offered yesterday. The exact dates of their strike action will be confirmed next week. The Northern Ireland Secretary has said there's still a way to go to resolve the row over the Northern Ireland Protocol. And a warning, if you're watching on TV, there is some flash photography next. The Irish Premier and the Labour leader both met political parties in Stormont earlier on today to discuss the post-Brexit trade rules on the Irish land border. The DUP has been blocking the formation of a proper government in Stormont until the protocol is dramatically altered. And there's been travel disruption today for passengers in and around London as strikes took place on the newly opened Elizabeth line. Members from the Transport Salaried Staff Association and their sister union, Prospect, all walked out over pay and pensions. The two unions rejected a 4.4% increase this year. And the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said the government needed to up its negotiating tactics.
I don't want to see this industrial action. I want to lead a government that resolves these issues. Under the last Labour government, you didn't have a national strike for nurses. You had fair pay for nurses. And we think that you should be in the room negotiating, sorting out these problems.
GB News, now time for headliners.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. I'll be taking you through Friday's top stories. Joining me tonight, Headliners residents Leo Kearse and Josh Howie. First, though, let's have a quick peek at what Friday's front pages have in store for us. We kick off with the Daily Mail. Hand out statins on demand, doctors are told. And a picture of Kate there, looking very splendid in a vaguely black watch frock coat. Friday's Telegraph, net zero plan to ban gas boilers in a decade, also illustrated by Kate. The Guardian, Barclay privately admits he must increase pay offer to NHS workers. That story illustrated by Joe Biden in a mask. He's been discovered to hold some unwarranted papers. Friday's Times, millions more offered chance to take statins. We'll be taking a look at that shortly. There again are the airs. Friday's Sun next. Talking therapies don't work for everyone. Who can be possibly talking about there, I wonder. And finally, the Daily Star, as always, have found a new angle. Men with cars do have tiny dipsticks. Rather dated reference there. Fast cars, not just cars. Apologies for that for anyone driving a perfectly reasonable car. So those are the front pages. Let's take a look inside. So we will start things off with the front page of the Sun, Leo, for a change.
Yeah, so this is Kate and Wills. We're at a hospital in Liverpool opening it. It's the only way hospitals can be open. If we did away with the royal family, I don't know how hospitals would actually...
Is it a bit like a caesarean? Do they have to be sort of surgically opened?
There are scissors involved.
Yeah.
So there is something cut, and then the hospital can operate. But yeah, so they were there, and the Princess of Wales, Kate, she told the young people there that talking therapies don't work for some people. And it's obviously a dig at Harry, because he never shuts up about his therapy that he has. He has lots of talking therapy. And talking therapy is, I mean, maybe it works for some people. I reckon it's a scam. You just got somebody, they're getting paid. So they've got an incentive to keep you coming back each week. So they're not going to cure you, but you're paying them to just make you feel good.
It's funny that you mention that. I remember there was a famous tweet several years ago that said Twitter is like therapy for people who don't want to get better. And I thought, yeah, that's funny, but also therapy is like therapy for people who don't want to get better. But therapy just goes on for years and nothing ever happens.
Yeah. Well, my wife's a therapist.
And you're better.
And it definitely works. No, but the problem is she's too good. She loses clients all the time. She's like, oh, now you're better. And then it's gone. I'm like, string him out.
You're one of the angriest people I know.
Yeah, but you didn't see me before. You should see me there.
There are different codes, right? CBT, for instance, I think that does work. Cognitive behavioural therapy. That gives people recognisably, tools that can actually improve their condition.
Yeah.
The Freudian analysis, that kind of stuff, the New York kind of, the Woody Allen thing, that just can go on for decades without anyone ever getting any better. It becomes just a habit.
And especially with somebody who's a bit thick, like Harry. So, you can just dupe him along. You can just tell him everything's everyone else's fault. Oh, it's the media's fault.
Well,
and that's why they're enemies.
We have Harry coming up later, so...
Yeah, well, I should say, I personally don't think that she was talking about him at all. She was talking to a 14-year-old kid who was, talking about how he's in music therapy and how it helps him to express his emotions.
Oh, that's good.
And then she's like, well, that's right. Now, if she was clever, maybe, of course, that could be the secondary thing, but I think she's actually a nice person. She was like, well, now, that would be funny. I'm just going to give her too much credit.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it is good, actually, that these kids have alternative therapists, because some people find talking exactly the thing that has caused them to have trouble in the first place.
This is all paid for by my taxes.
Your taxes?
Yeah.
Is it around £5 a week?
But who knows what these kids have been through? But there is one line here. Sorry, I've just got to read this. One of the children said, I feel privileged that they came to see us for the first visit after the book has been released. It shows that nothing can stop them. That child did not say that, right? Which child knows about the book?
I
feel very affected. It's ridiculous.
What have you got?
Well, they should be in therapy if they're speaking like that, you weirdo.
Have you got The Guardian there, Josh?
Yes. So we've got a few different stories here. The main one at the top is Barclay privately admits he must increase pay offer to NHS workers. They've offered, I think, about £1,000 as like a sort of £1,400, but he's saying that, yes, that really should go up. Per nurse, to frontline workers, and that he's basically saying, yes, they deserve more. The government, for whatever reason, has just been going, no, we're not going to... Well, we know the reason. They don't want the inflation to go up, but essentially...
and they want the NHS to collapse so they can sell it cheap to American capitalists or something.
I don't think they do want the NHS to collapse. For most of the NHS's life, it's been under Tory control, and it hasn't collapsed yet. I think, they don't want inflation.
It's getting close.
But, I mean, I think a good thing to do would be, and I think they've already said this to the NHS, if you can make savings, we can redistribute that money as extra salary. So if you fire all your useless equality, diversity and inclusion officers, all your stupid HR people who just sit
I don't think it's about the inclusivity, diversity, but I do think it's interesting that they are offering people the chance to take their own decision as to whether or not to take status. We'll be coming on to that, but it does seem to me like they might be just like throwing open the gate to a lot of preventative medicine.
Yeah, and there's also another really big story about climate crisis was foreseen by Exxon. And essentially, like you knew in the 1970s, Exxon had its own climate science scientists are employed. And essentially, they found all of their research from the 1970s, and pretty much everything that they predicted has come true in terms of how like greenhouse gas is increasing and the increasing of temperature and stuff like that, which makes me think like what we should do is force ourselves to have a look at all the companies' research now, so now we can get an accurate look at what's going to happen in the future.
I mean, people, Greenpeace and so on, have been saying for a long time, maybe for decades, that the oil companies is exactly the same playbook as the tobacco companies, because the tobacco companies had pretty strong research suggesting that there was a strong link between smoking and cancer in the 50s, and they immediately threw up what are, ironically called smoke screens, and they obfuscated and they created doubt, and it's been exactly the same process. It does look extremely familiar.
Yeah, but they've operated lawfully, and you can't say that, it's not like the scientist who did this research runs the company. No. He could have presented the research. It doesn't mean the company's going to change tack and turn into Greta Thunberg.
Well, also,
I've done predictions that if I get my own show on GB News, everything's going to be better.
If you get that show and then we come and somebody digs out those predictions in years to come, then we will be in a similar situation. But I have to say, against all this, although it does look bad in some regards, I'm not sure I would have gone the other way, because fossil fuels have elevated the living standards of literally billions of people,
which obviously
nothing else would have done in the last few decades.
Which makes a lot of elite politicians very unhappy. They hate to see people, living luxurious lives and going on tropical
but we also might have invested earlier in new technologies. That might have happened as well.
Let's have a look, Leo. You've got the Daily Telegraph with net zero plan to ban gas boilers in a similar line to the Exxon story.
So following on from the same theme, so new gas boilers could be banned within a decade. I remember when gas boilers came out, and they're environmentally friendly,
it's like diesel cars.
Yeah, exactly. So it just shows that they're always moving the sands underneath you, pulling the rug out from under your feet.
So what's the deal? That you will have to replace your boiler with something else, or that you can have it for as long as it lasts, but when it comes to being replaced finally?
Well, I mean, this is very much sort of conjecture. So they haven't, firmed up the rules. So this is a report, a net zero review, but it's suggesting obviously the government's going to they follow all the net zero stuff. So they're saying we've got to move to electricity, and we've got to generate electricity with more onshore wind. And also a fivefold increase in solar. Well, and they don't mention solar, but we should have we've got some nuclear power stations coming online. We should have a much more nuclear.
Yeah, we should have,
because when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, you're going to need it.
Absolutely.
And also, this is going to cost the average person a lot of money. There's going to be 6,000 if you include the cost of an electric car and everything. The cost per year is going to be £6,000 more.
Not just the cars as well. I mean, we live in Brighton, which thinks of itself as an extremely green place. I've said this on here before. It would be impossible for anything more than about 2% of the population to switch to electric cars at the moment, because the charging points just aren't there.
Yeah.
And most people don't even have driveways. Most people drive on park on the street.
Yeah.
If you can't guarantee that you're going to get next to a charging point, it's absolutely absurd. And nobody is building this infrastructure.
Well, that's why they've reduced the number of cars that are being made at the moment, because people can't get them. They're too expensive, and they don't have the facilities to be able to charge them.
Hopefully, in 10 years' time, it'll be nice and warm.
We won't need boilers. But this is going to there's going to be other costs as well. So the solar panels, they're going to go on land that could be used for farming. So the price of everything is going to go.
No, I thought they said they weren't going to put it on farming. They were going to put it on top of houses and things like that instead.
That's what they're saying.
Hydroponic solar.
But they're also
marijuana.
They're also getting rid in the Netherlands. They're getting rid of I think it's 3,000 dairy farms. So all this stuff.
It's kind of strange, that, isn't it?
It's really short-sighted. They're like, we can get our meat and dairy from Russia. That'll work out fine. Yeah, how did that work out with gas? You know what I mean?
If we have to get Argentinian beef and it costs us the Falklands, I don't know, that could be another one. So we go to the Times now. Josh, you're looking at this, another picture of Will and Kate, but the statins thing, I find that quite interesting, personally.
Yeah, so they're lowering the sort of stat. It was recommended to the people who sort of had 10% chance of having heart attacks, basically of needing it, but actually they're saying that it can pretty much help more than that. So now it's going to be recommended to everybody.
It could just be something that everyone takes, like aspirin.
Just by default.
They always say when you reach to a certain age, you should take aspirin every day just to thin the blood slightly. The statins are slightly more powerful.
I think that's along the lines. Lower your cholesterol, and it can have.
Take aspirin. Do you take aspirin?
No, but now he's making me paranoid.
I wouldn't.
I'm just thinking.
I wasn't taking.
They say half an aspirin after you're 50 every day is I think it's one of those things.
Is it mixed badly with heroin?
I think it's a bit of a speedball, actually. I think it's pretty nice.
Okay, now that's making me a bit more interested. So that's it. And then the other story here is Jeff Beck died yesterday. It was yesterday, wasn't it?
It was, it was about this time last night.
Yeah, and was he the greatest rock guitarist? I guess that's a...
It was an interesting figure in rock history because I don't think he was probably quite as as visible to the general public as Eric Clapton or Hendrix or Keith Richards or whatever, but the guitarist. Are you guys into that kind of music, or...?
What sort of music was it?
Well, in the 60s, he had a band with... he was in the Yardbirds and then a band with... Well, that wasn't the Yardbirds. Then it was the Jeff Beck Group with Rod Stewart.
Oh, right.
They played British blues. By the mid-70s, he was more experimental and quite jazz-inflected. And
Is he the guy who invented acid jazz?
No, he wouldn't be acid jazz.
Did he do any 90s hip-hop? Any 90s hip-hop?
He's almost certainly been sampled on some.
OK, if I'll probably recognise him from some of the De La Soul albums.
But his most famous track remains Hi-Ho Silver Lining, which used to close every school disco in the 70s, and still to this day a lot of weddings, I think, would never be in could play Hi-Ho Silver Lining, and away we go.
Well, you could have been the greatest singer.
He was an extraordinary... I think he was possibly too good for his own good in a way, but he was universally lauded on Twitter last night. It was very moving. Mick Jagger, David Gilmour, they were all out there, bidding farewell. Well, that's the future for rock dads. I'm afraid they're all going to start going now, but Jeff Beck was one of the greatest. I did see him in a pub in Rotherfield one night, watching his own son in the bar band.
That's nice, isn't it?
That was nice. That's the closest I got to him, but it was good enough. That is it for part one. After the break, we'll go behind the front pages. We've got Sadiq Khan's take on Brexit, unwelcome. Whether tech bosses should be jailed, probably a good idea. We'll have a sniff at the dodgy files found in President Biden's garage. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
And welcome back to the Headliners. I am still Simon Evans and I still have Leo Kearse and Josh Howie with me. So let's kick off with Friday's Express, Josh. It looks like the so-called online safety bill actually carries some significant danger, at least for complacent prime ministers.
Yeah, Tory Rebellion threatens Sunak as nearly 40 Conservative MPs revolt over online safety law. Essentially, this online safety bill has been just going on, and it's important that they get it right, and I do think something does need to be done. What they're trying to push through is this thing where if the heads of the companies would essentially go to jail for 2 years if they've been found to have harmed children. There are, and this is...
their definition of harm is very strange.
Well, this is it, self-harm. So that's the problem is, and they're sort of looking at it now going, seeing what unintended consequences are. Well, that's the thing about unintended consequences. You don't know, really. So I think...
Not intended.
Yeah, exactly. So it's people like Priti Patel, Ian Duncan Smith. I'm personally wondering if there's something else going on here and a bit of politics in play to sort of... You've got these rebels, these former or present sort of fans of Boris Johnson.
They're going to try and launch another coup.
No, but I think it's them flexing their muscles a little bit.
Right.
Because also there's something else that's going on, which was on one of the papers, how Johnson is basically... There's a possibility of him getting a safe seat if these people all back off.
Right.
And that he wants a safer seat.
Has he not got a safe seat?
No, not Uxbridge is not safe enough, essentially.
Okay.
So that could be... This could be part of sort of tying into all of that.
Yeah.
So
this
we'll
might
see.
be a sort of bit of smoke-filled horse trading.
What we do know is that he doesn't want anything to rock the boat. Like, we've seen it now with the wind farms, he saw it with the developing bill, whether any time that they sort of get their backs up, he backs off straight away. He just doesn't want to show any rebellion.
And of course, Leo, the online safety and the harms, pensioner. The online safety arms, what they have these days. But this has become an extraordinarily divisive issue in Scotland as well, right? This is probably the single closest thing to a rebellion that Sturgeon has had to.
Well, I mean, it's a ridiculous piece of legislation. I mean, we're used to seeing, ridiculous legislation, both sides of the border, the hate crime bill in Scotland, the policing bill down here. But this is, there's unprecedented restrictions on lawful speech and unfettered monitoring of WhatsApp and, communication systems you'd think were private. And it'll leave tech companies responsible, the CEO is liable for jail, so obviously they're going to play super safe and remove anything that could be identified as harmful. And anything could be harmful. You post something saying, I'm going golfing. That could be perceived as harmful because somebody could get hit by a golf ball. I mean, this is seriously
how it could be... Well, they certainly said... I mean, one of the things, the first chill wind that we felt in this show when it was quite early days in this show and David Amos was murdered, which was absolutely appalling, brutal murder, had nothing to do with social media, had nothing to do with people criticising, complaining about politicians on social media, but was immediately pounced upon as justification for this. I find that very sinister, the way that they are going to attempt essentially to just chill criticism, I think, of the government, of any political activity.
And it's so vaguely worded that, anything can be interpreted as harm, and so it's ridiculous. And with stuff like this, it really needs to be specifically worded. Yeah. And we've seen mission creep in other legislation when the regulation of Investigatory Powers Act came through. That was intended, again, like the David Amos thing, it was intended to tackle terrorism, online child abuse, stuff like that. And within a couple of months, they were using it to catch fly tippers. And, it's always misused.
I mean, I would hang fly tippers. Express again, this will play well with GB News core audience, I imagine. Sadiq Khan hoping to reverse the decision of the Brexit referendum, which is, of course, well within the remit of the London mayor, I would have thought. Yeah,
Sadiq Khan. I mean, I wish he'd deal with something that's actually within his remit instead of dealing with stuff that isn't. So Sadiq Khan is arguing for Britain to rejoin the EU single market because Brexit is not working. So he's calling for a pragmatic debate, and he's accusing ministers of having select amnesia when it comes to Brexit. And he says Brexit is doing immense damage. I mean, I'm not a Brexiteer. I voted Remain. I don't know if I'd vote the same way again. It was a marginal thing for me. But I can tell you, Brexit isn't responsible for London's problems. Sadiq Khan is responsible for London's problems.
There's two issues here, aren't there?
Knife and gun crime are surging. Transport is so unreliable. The transport network is so unreliable. And there's nowhere near enough houses. So rents are absolutely surging. So it's ridiculous. And that's having a real impact on London's economy.
And it's interesting you mentioned the third one there, the rent surging and the lack of property, because if anything that Brexit obviously has done, it's sucked a lot of itinerant labour out of the country and a lot of businesses are struggling. But London clearly is the least struggling of any of them. Yeah. I mean, if the housing shortage is anything to go by. There's two separate issues, aren't there? A, is it anything for Sadiq Khan to be talking about at all? But B, I do think there's probably quite a few people who did vote for Brexit on the understanding that the trade deals would be
Yeah.
No, but yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think that he's calling for Brexit to be reversed at all. What he's saying is, let's be open about it. And he's right in that all the political parties, including the Tories, it's an incredibly toxic issue. Still, they're not talking about it. There is a problem. I'm not calling for us to go back in, even though I'm a big, not a fan of Brexit at all. But the point is, we have to acknowledge that the raising of these trade barriers is causing a problem for companies, for our economy has suffered.
Yep.
So we do need to start discussing it so we can find solutions. And just sort of saying, make Brexit work, that's not enough.
No, I agree with you. It has become very toxic, and it has. I think there was a period when there was too much attempt to smother it completely and make sure it was a stillbirth and not going to happen at all.
Yeah.
And then people like Keir Starmer in particular recognised that this was doing Labour a lot of damage, and so they backed off and go, oh, we're going to go full steam ahead and there's no turning back. And in fact, neither of these are very grown-up approaches, are they?
Keir Starmer is actually using the Brexit mantra. He's saying we're going to take back control. So he's really tacked to the Brexit.
He's got a good sense of humour.
This from Friday's Guardian now, over to that lodestone of peace, love and equality, the most virtuous and morally upright people in every generation, they're students.
Yes, the students, Jewish students suffered anti-Semitic bullying within the NUS inquiry finds. Now, for The Guardian to be writing this article, you know that it has to have actually been bad, because they are somewhat reluctant to talk about anti-Semitism on the left. This is an independent investigation that the NUS carried out, or asked to be carried out.
Yep.
And I want to say it's the 8th report that's been held since 2005 that has consistently found anti-Semitism within the NUS. Yeah. They make a bunch of recommendations. The NUS go, yeah, sure, we'll sort it out, and then they never do. Let's see if it's safe time lucky.
They had a leader, she's gone now, but she was specifically...
Yeah, she was specifically, but people in the Jewish community and students and young people, we have been fighting this for a long time. This isn't something over the last 2 years, 5 years. It's about 20 years now, at least, of this kind of stuff. And some of the...
There was some other stuff before that.
Well, there was some other stuff, yes. But what we've been fighting is... And some of the stories here about, how they were, Jews were, not allowed to mark Holocaust Memorial Day. Yeah. You had these Mossad conspiracies. You had Jews who were, said that someone said it was the final solution because they tried to, get Jews going out of the particular...
I remember clips only a couple of years ago of them being barracked as they were just walking into a student union.
That was
really horrific.
That was Shaima Dalali. So that was
she was one of the carrying...
the National Union of Students, and so she was yelling anti-Semitic abuse, a Jewish student, and it's she was then president of the NUS. I couldn't believe it.
And I thought, I mean, not that it would excuse it, but it might to some extent explain it. I had assumed that it was largely to do with Israel, rather that that way that those two issues get conflated, our students, Jewish students, but it's not, is it? It goes much broader.
It's wider than that. There's been sort of blood libel going on, and it's just really frustrating. This is the independent investigator said, Rebecca Tuck. She said, for at least the last decade, Jewish students have not felt welcome or included in NUS spaces or elected roles, and there have been numerous instances of anti-Semitism within the NUS. Yeah. The thing is, of course, is the NUS is meant to be left-wing, and these union spaces are meant to be like that. And the fact that some of these examples, it's horrible to read.
And it makes a lot of sense of the momentum that Jeremy Corbyn and because, of course, that was largely a student.
I think it's time to wake up to the fact that your fellow lefties are evil, Josh.
Why do you think I'm here?
And also the
Always a safe place for you in the Disraeli Institute.
The Israel thing, when people criticise Israel, you never see them criticising the other countries in the Middle East that have far worse human rights.
It is extraordinary how focused they can be. So Friday's Times, to finish this section, we stay with you, Josh, for jolting Joe Biden appears to have his own secret stash of confidential papers, just like John's.
Yes, Attorney General Merrick Garland appoints special counsel to review Biden's classified documents. So, yes, of course, they had this big raid on the Mar-a-Lago. In Trump says, and they found all these boxes of documents, and Biden was like, "How could you do that?" And then turns out there are documents in his garage as well,
which were presumably from when he was vice president.
Vice president, slightly different. I mean, vice presidents don't actually know anything.
Probably had some parking vouchers.
Yeah, literally don't. I mean, actually, it's a bit sad in that some of these documents relate to his son's funeral.
Oh, really?
And stuff like that. And there was one document in one box. We're talking about a different scale here, but this is a case of he's going, right, let's be full and frank about this, let's get this out there, because, and I think actually it could work out in their favour, just like that Keir Starmer thing, remember with the beer and whatever, it's let's have the investigation, because all it's going to do is make the other side, whatever the other side is, look bad. So Trump is already saying, cancel my investigation, but you should investigate him. It's no, you know what, let's investigate everybody. If Biden's done wrong, then let's hold him accountable. And if Trump's done wrong, let's hold him accountable.
Funny thing about documents being taken home, and I mean, when you read about it in the newspaper, you go, "Oh, he's gone with documents." But we've all done that. I mean, I'm not saying I understand.
I've got a stapler. I've got a hole punch.
Yeah,
I've taken everything.
I've got like logbooks from other people's cars. I have no idea how I've had a good.
I've got to disagree with you about this whole thing about Trump did it so much work. No, Trump took those documents home because he wanted to work. He wanted to work late into the night. Everybody thought he was playing golf or something. No,
with his green shade.
After he's no longer.
Whereas Biden is all like, this is the worst. When Trump did it, it's the worst thing you can possibly do. And then Biden, it was distributed around his garage places. At least Mar-a-Lago is like under lock and key. This is just anybody can get into a garage.
I thoroughly endorse your right to present it in those terms. But although I am absolutely I think that there's a huge amount of hypocrisy when it comes to Biden and Trump. But I think on this occasion it's probably not quite the smoking gun
and the way it's presented in the media are already tripping over themselves trying to make it as if trying to make excuses for Biden. It's really disgusting. It's so blatant.
It's absolutely turning my stomach. That is it for part 2. Join us in part 3 for some male gender neutral nominations. You didn't think we'd go an entire show without those? How offensive the flower of Scotland is and why magnetic fields are now problematic. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I am Simon Evans. I'm joined by Leo Kearse and Josh Howie for the third part of tonight's 4-part show. Let us kick off with the Friday Express. Not the Friday's Express, Josh. This looks like the... Oh, no. We've had that one. I apologise. It's entertainment news now. That somehow got jumbled in the prompt. Friday's Times, and it seems that upper body strength is required to make good pop music, after all. Is that right?
Yeah, gender-neutral Brit Awards nominate all men for 2023's Best Artist. Who would have foreseen this? Last year, the Brits, they were like, we're going to get rid of gender. What is gender? What is sex? We're all human beings. It doesn't matter.
And to be fair, it was won by a woman. Adele won
last year, yeah.
Huge.
That was the year that she was big. Yeah. Well, guess what's happened this year? She's doing it. And this year, and we covered this story last year, and we said, well, let's see what happens. And there's something else that's gone a few days ago. We covered Sam Mendes, director.
This is going to happen in the Oscars.
He says it's inevitable. But, of course, the whole point of awards is to give the most amount of people attention to their work. So men and women. So to limit it like this,
it's up for dispute. I can understand that because you wouldn't have black pop star and white pop star. I mean, I suppose you have music of black origin, but it's a separate ceremony. But you wouldn't have that at the Brits. You wouldn't say who's the best black pop star.
You would have Hitler's Brits.
Yeah, exactly. So you might think, I suppose there's a sense that, is it a tradition? Does it need investigating? But I always tend towards the Conservative. It's probably there for a reason. And
well, now there's a bunch of women who probably put out some great music this year.
Yeah.
Just wasn't as good as men.
What are they called? Wet legs? I think they're...
Wet trousers. Why is it wet legs?
So, having said that, the top 5 male artists don't exactly like my candle either, to be honest. So I'm no real... Harry Styles is looking likely to win it, and he's kind of gender neutral these days, isn't he?
I think he's still got a willy.
Has he? But he does wear women's clothing, definitely.
But so what? But that doesn't matter. I mean, the people... David Bowie...
They're represented.
Oh, you think that...
I got a laptop and I turned it on and it sang a song about getting dumped and ate a bag of chips. It's Adele.
It's a terrible joke. Friday's Mail, and that's not Harry Styles. A little touch of Harry in the Night, however, reminds him of his mum. That's sweet.
Prince Harry has left readers wincing with his account of applying Elizabeth Arden cream. That's a brand of cream.
Yeah, not Arden cream. This is Arden.
That'd be appropriate. I think that's what it's going to be called after this.
Actually, I'm here and we've got the video of this. Let's have a listen. No, seriously, just the audio book.
Okay, fine. Not the real life.
Can you hear that? No, not actually. Let's have a look.
My penis was oscillating between extremely sensitive and borderline traumatized. The last place I wanted to be was Frostnipistan. I'd been trying some home remedies, including one recommended by a friend. She'd urged me to apply Elizabeth Arden cream. My mum used that on her lips. You want me to put that on my todger? It works, Harry. Trust me. I found a tube, and the minute I opened it, the smell transported me through time. I felt as if my mother was right there in the room. Then I took a smidge and applied it down there.
This ghostwriter is earning every single penny. That is wild. I mean, people are going to buy the book just for that, just for that piece of history.
It has become an incredibly fast-selling... It's an interesting phenomenon because his popularity ratings have plummeted, which I find completely believable.
Yeah.
But the book sold something like 500,000 copies already. I mean, just
biggest non-fiction.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let's not call it non-fiction.
What's that?
I mean, let's not call it non-fiction. He's doing a séance with his mum via the medium of rubbing cream in his penis.
I'm going to go really dangerously, on thin ice and go completely devil's advocate. If it wasn't like a prince, if he wasn't talking about Princess Diana, if there was somebody if it was Martin Amis, for instance, who was discussing some of the humiliating experiences, he did a brilliant passage in one of his novels in which a man that's very similar to real Martin Amis is humiliated by the fact that he's become impotent in his marriage and the only erections he still gets are when his own toddler squirms on his lap. Now, to actually put that in a book, I think it was quite brave. I'm not saying it's happened to me, but you can imagine somebody has had that kind of... It's the kind of thing, if you put it into the right literary context, the idea that a man would use a pharmaceutical on frostbite, that reminded him of his mother, it's quite brave. It's just the context of Harry somehow just makes it so wrong. Am I right, or is that? Do you think it's?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's a very, very, very weird thing to put in a book and to say. It's someone because if it summons your mum. When you put something, I mean, it's so Freudian. Also, his mum was hot.
Yeah,
I mean? So it's
hopefully not to him.
Well, I think this shows that maybe she was.
But this thing I don't get is the recommendation. Yeah. How many? This is a female friend of. How many people does she know who've got frostbite on their willy?
Yeah.
She was like, oh no, it works for that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
Why does it have to be Elizabeth Arden? I mean, it didn't have to be the exact same brand, did it? There are plenty of other similar products that she could have said, well, pick one else.
I bet we're going to find out that he's got shares in it. that's the thing. But you know what? Can I just say, the writer, J.R. Moringer, he wrote...
J.R. Hartley.
Yeah. He wrote Andre Agassiz. I didn't realise it was the same writer. And now that's a brilliant book. And also he wrote because that was such a good book, I read his own book about his childhood called The Tender Bar, which is like an amazing book. So
fair enough.
Actually, I wasn't going to read this at all, but he's such a good writer. Now I'm sort of thinking maybe...
I didn't read the Agassi one, but that's the one where it came out, A, that he'd hated tennis his whole life, and B, he was bald his whole life, and that incredible hair that he used to have that was like so iconic was all the wig held by the hairband,
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It was apparently, I think that was probably the sports biography of the decade, wasn't it? So, yeah, he's
he used Elizabeth Arden cream on his head to help with his baldness.
It must have been so uncomfortable sweating under that weed.
That's why I didn't win more.
Anyway, Friday's Times now. An old Scottish rugby coach believes the de facto Scottish rugby anthem is riddled with anti-English bigotry. What? Surely some mistake here, Leo. I can't believe it.
So, yeah, can you believe there's anti-English sentiment in Scotland? So, yeah, rugby great Jim Telfer has called for the anti-English Scottish anthem to be ditched. This is Flower of Scotland, or Fleury Scotland, as it's pronounced.
And it relates to specific battles with Edward the First.
Yeah, so it recounts Scotland's victory over proud Edward's army at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314.
Yeah.
So we're clinging on. I mean, I know the English get stick for clinging on to 1966, but we're going back to 1314 for our victory.
Did we win it, Culloden? I can remember. Which one was ours?
I think England won quite a lot of them.
Yeah,
and I think one overall, because that's why we're now part of like the UK as opposed to England being part of the Scottish Empire.
Which was like Archie Gemmell's goal in 1982, I think, wasn't it, when England wasn't in the World Cup and Scotland had a run at the title. I don't resent you at all, personally. But what he did say, which I think perhaps has some, just to sort of take it briefly seriously, is it's just not healthy for any country to have such an obsession with one other specific country.
Yeah.
Your rugby anthem should be about how great you are, not about one specific...
That's the thing. If your identity is just formed in opposition to somebody else, like what does that say about your identity?
But it's such a natural trap to fall into, isn't it? It's basically what happened to America during the Cold War and why they have spun off the hook, you know, and why they were desperately...
But Rocky IV is an amazing film.
Yes, that's true.
That was worth the Cold War. Just for that montage in the Siberia.
Maybe that's what this whole, you know, the geopolitics of the last 3 or 4 years have been building up to reigniting the Rocky franchise. Friday's Telegraph, and in a crowded field, perhaps I should say arena, this might be the most nonsensical thing we've heard today, Josh.
Yeah, just today.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Leading American university removes the word field because it is racist. It's the University of Southern California. They spend a lot of money to try and find words that might upset people. And they're saying that because it may have negative connotations for descendants of slavery. So they're talking about field work.
Yeah.
And I just assumed they were talking about agriculture or something. But it was, of course, field work, the field of study, the field, going out into a field work and whatnot.
So this is the greatest man in his field.
Yeah, whatever. So they're saying replace it with practicum. What? Like that's practicum. Oh, that's really practicum.
He's the best in
practicum. This is just...
this is like the Latinx thing,
nutters.
They try and gender neutralise Latino.
Yeah,
so
which didn't work out. They've dropped that now.
Yeah. Somebody on Twitter pointed out that... So they introduce all this complex, convoluted language that only the woke elites can understand. So it's a way of showing it. It's a way of almost...
Shibboleths.
Yeah, well, the
priest... making it a barrier. Almost like the class system.
A priest class, sort of like with the church and whatever.
Absolutely, and it is more sinister. It sounds bad, but actually it's quite sinister because they will use it to trip you up and then you'll be excluded.
I can't believe you just said trip you up. That's very, very offensive to circus performers and clowns.
And in the letter, they admit that they're trying to change the language. This is, you know, they're changing the meaning of words. I mean, and trying to use the right word now is a total mind-demarcated arable farm area.
I mean, the word field, I don't know how like associated it is with slavery, but I do remember I had a Lonnie Donegan album. Because I like Lonnie Donegan, then to Skiffle, right?
Such a humble brag.
Off with blues, and they had on there some field shouts. That's what they were, and it would like, because they would credit, this song was written by this person, and then this song is a traditional blues standard, and this is a field shout, like, hey now, cotton and bagel on the horn of, you know, it's a bit like when the army go marching, and they just have a kind of like to keep the rhythm going.
I know a girl called Mary.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So those are called field shouts, so I assume that's where it's from. So I don't know if that is like,
I think
it's not. I mean, it's not obviously an honourable episode in American history, but it's been kind of absorbed into the culture, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was their cover that got them in trouble. Of the people who are wearing white sheets. Maybe that might have been it.
Not Lonnie Donegan. I don't think that. My old man's a Nazi. He wears a Nazi's hood. Over to Friday's Metro. Strange focus for their sympathy. This, or is it Schadenfreude?
I think it's Schadenfreude.
So it is, isn't it?
Elon Musk has broken the world record for the worst loss of fortune in history. history, although the Metro will break the record for the least accurate amount. So they say he's become the first person in history to lose $2 billion. I mean, he wishes he lost $2 billion.
Or even 20.
Yeah, he lost $200 billion. They repeat the mistake further in the article, so it's ridiculous. And then they don't even recognise the mistake when they say, so Elon Musk's net worth dropped from a peak of $320 billion in 2021 to $130 billion in January 2023, where we are now. So this is due to the shares in Tesla tanking, or really just coming down to what they're more like what they're really worth.
They went absurd like inflation during.
It was like Bitcoin or something.
Yeah.
It was a cult. There was no real connection to the fundamental value of the business. But the previous record for the largest loss of personal wealth was held by a Japanese tech investor, Masayoshi Son, who lost $58.6 billion in 2000. I wonder if that'd be bigger adjusted for inflation. But yeah, Elon Musk, he's still worth about $140 billion.
I mean,
and Tesla shares will probably come back up or go down. Nobody knows.
Obviously, it's a sort of arbitrary amount at that level, isn't it? If he were to try and sell it all, it wouldn't be worth that much. You know, he'd never get all that much for it, as he said, and it's all in stock. But it is an absurd kind of. It's Schadenfreude, yes, and kind of envy and. It's not the worst loss in history. The worst losses in history are the ones that leave you destitute. Elon Musk hasn't even noticed. If he hasn't actually checked his bank account, his lifestyle hasn't changed.
He's nowhere near my level.
No, exactly. I remember there was a comic called Gordon Southern who used to do a joke about going to the cash point. There'd often be somebody begging by the cash point, and he'd always get a balance slip and go, "Look, at least you've only got nothing."
Sorry, he still does that joke.
That's it for part 3. Coming up after the break, we have a man with an AI wife, a funeral with a twist, and why it's time to hang up your air guitar. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Headliners for the fourth and final part. The Daily Star now, worrying signs that human boyfriends are becoming sentient, Josh.
Indeed. Man makes an AI wife, then kills her because they can never truly be together.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the film Weird Science. Do you remember that? Yeah, from a bunch of teenagers. Yeah, it's a great film.
All science is weird science.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's sort of like that. He basically collated all of this, like this, you know, this modern AI chatbot thing.
Yeah.
And there was an image generator, a text-to-speech tool. Basically, chatted to her all the time, spoke to her more than spoke to anybody else. And you're reading this, and then then you sort of turn over the page, and then his girlfriend, and then it's like
he has a girlfriend,
and then it says, and you're like, what? Like...
He had a girlfriend.
He has a girlfriend. The girlfriend basically got jealous and said, you better kill...
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, that's weird.
How does this guy have a girlfriend?
I'm not surprised that there are people who resort to that if they're lonely and if they are disabled or something, can't get out of the house, you know, good luck to them. But,
some tech nerd like this guy.
Yeah, but he's got a girlfriend.
A real breathing life girlfriend. And he says he's missing
Do you know
the AI
this reminds
one.
me of we have a dog called Bucky, and then my wife also has an imaginary dog called Patrick that she uses to tease Bucky with. She goes, oh, Patrick wouldn't do that. And Bucky always looks really sad now.
I'm going to try that with my kids. Let's see if that works.
So cruel. He gets so upset. But honestly, I think it's really strange, isn't it?
Oh, totally strange. I mean, ChatGPT, it's insane.
Yeah.
People have written... Dominic Frisby wrote an article recently, and he said parts of it had been written by ChatGPT.
You couldn't tell.
So you can't tell the difference. No. That's how bad Dominic's writing it. But yeah, no, this is shocking. And the shocking thing is, he had a girlfriend. This guy should not... I'm just amazed.
I remember seeing there was a
future
bloke
that we will have children.
There was a guy who went on one of the daytime chat shows, one of the big one, the Schofield, whatever, with a sex robot between him and his wife.
Yeah.
And he said the sex robot had initially been brought into the house to do a bit of... hoovering, and also I don't know if it did hoover, but it was to sort of read bedtime stories to the kids and stuff. And then he sort of brought it in.
That was my first appearance on television.
Yeah.
Surely that's a terrible excuse for having a sex robot.
I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a sex robot.
Do you know what he called her as well?
Well, no, I don't suppose there's a sex setting on this thing, is there?
So I suppose like any robot's a sex robot.
But this is what he called her, ChatGBT-chan.
Yeah.
What a terrible name.
It's because it's a Japanese anime character.
Okay, fine.
You can just imagine how calming a conversation with a chatbot could be, though, after the stress of married life.
Well, they talked about how much they hated Burger King. That was it.
Back to the Times. More evidence that scientists with small packages crave the attention that only sexually provocative research can provide.
Yeah. So according to this research, men who are insecure about the size of their penis do covet sports cars, and the effect becomes all the more noticeable as they approach middle age. So they did this study titled "Small Penises and Fast Cars: Evidence for a Psychological Link." I mean, really, this is the state academias, and they're banning the word field, and this is the studies they're doing.
How do they do field work for this?
It had to be, what do you call it, practicum work. Practicum work. But yeah, so they basically did this study where they told men, the men didn't know they were being measured on this sort of penis thing, but they told men the average length of a penis, and they varied the size from 10 centimetres to 18 centimetres.
When we really know it's 5 centimetres.
And then, so the men who thought it was lower would feel better about their own penis. And then they asked what sort of car you want, and then if they felt bad about their penis, they wanted a fast car.
They wanted a faster car so they could get away quick.
Whereas if you've got a large penis, you want a slow car so you can show everybody.
This does feel like the sort of research that might be useful if you're trying to sell cars. I mean, that's a small one. Can I just...
I wonder if genuinely, like, when people walk onto the lots and stuff, if they can just clock somebody and just go, wait a minute, check him out. I'll go and stand next to them at the urinal. And just go, I've got a car for you, mate.
Robert Cialdini book called Influence came out in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, great book.
It's very interesting. It's full of used car sales techniques, basically, isn't it? And apparently that's where Donald Trump got all his skills from, according to Scott Adams. It's I don't know, the small penis thing mentioned there. Anyway, obviously that's 1-0 to Greta. Over to the Mirror, and it turns out our kids think all things that our generation thought were unbelievably cool are actually cringe. No way, Jose!
Yeah, dude. You are cool. So air guitar and double thumbs up becoming extinct as Gen Z dub them cringe. You know what? You did a double thumbs up at the beginning. Is that why you did it?
Yeah.
Double. That's the fonz.
The fonz.
Well, these are good things.
Thumbs and laughs.
I did that, but that's not cool anymore. What?
And also the OK sign.
That's white power.
That means white power apparently.
After you used it just now.
These are two. The fonts, the double thumbs up. That was always.
And he was more like that.
Ironic. There was always But the air guitar, that's like a thing you do when you're drunk and you're alone. Nobody does that to be cool.
I think you just revealed a lot about yourself there.
Well, I don't care. You put on Don't Stop Believing.
You've got some Jeff... Look at you with your Jeff Beck and your...
Got these satin loom pants on.
Maybe it's time to stop believing.
Maybe pause believing.
the thing with this, the thing that's jumped out at me is this is all these like kids. Kids are like all these students and kids. They're scared. They're worried about what people think of them. If you're doing air guitar, you don't care what people think about you, and that's much cooler than being like, oh, I'm worried what people think about me. I'm not going to do air guitar.
That is literally what cool means, isn't it? I don't care what people think.
Oh, really? A friend of mine actually won the air guitar championship, world championships. I think he went to Helsinki and like they made a documentary about it and everything. It's really cool. Like, it's cool. But what about the signing the check?
What loses it? What if it gets misplaced?
Then he gets some of that cream. Gets handlers. Cries himself.
Prince William should do an air guitar. Do you see air guitar? Like make a compilation.
The spare guitar.
Yes, air guitar versus spare guitar. What an amazing way to settle this once and for all. The Daily Star has a rather touching farewell to a much-loved granny, Leo.
So this woman, Sandy Wood, her funeral was interrupted by a mob of dancers singing Another One Bites the Dust by Queen, who then proceeded to perform a conga behind the coffin as it left. So, mourners were shocked and disgusted until they realised she'd actually hired these people to do this sort of flash mob event before she died, to just make her funeral
which is pretty
chaos
great,
and fun.
actually, isn't it?
Yeah, but
great
I just hope they got paid before she died.
Yeah, there they are up on the screen there. The only thing that saddens me is the church. The dancing and everything is pretty cool, but I mean it's all just a bit too brightly lit, isn't it? And it looks like it's being done.
It's not sexy enough.
It's not. I wanted like proper Gothic church, kind of.
Got some steam coming out.
That's right.
This looks very utilitarian, like 60s new church.
Yeah, Why is that cross behind? Presumably curtains can be drawn.
It's a church surprise.
You thought you'd come to a disco. Oh, bless her. But anyway, she was like a victim of some massive blood scandal or something.
Way to make it sad.
Yeah.
The infected blood scandal in the 1980s, which I think the investigation is just coming to fruition now, and they're starting to pay.
They're just doing the payouts.
So I think they deliberately delayed delayed the investigation so that they wouldn't have to pay out as much money.
So if nothing else, Another One Bites the Dust has on this occasion drawn this story back into the limelight, and hopefully there'll be some proper compensation.
Yeah.
Let's hope that would be a nice ending. Finally, the Metro. You've got 2 minutes to drag this one out.
Oh, my gosh. Mate.
If I've understood this story correctly, this woman didn't tell her colleagues that she was really black.
I could drag this out. I could literally drag this out for an hour. This is the most incredible story. I lied to my colleagues about who I am. I won't reveal anything about myself. And then she's like, oh, yeah, black lone white. So I think they guessed that she was black, number one. But then she's talking about stuff that's like, it's just insane. She then basically makes excuses for why she's a liar. She basically says, I just exaggerate because I want to basically not reveal anything about myself because I'm afraid they're going to laugh at me or whatever. She talks about code switching. Look, we all do it. We all change our accents.
What is code switching?
So basically it's where you change in different social and professional situations. You sort of change your accent a little bit.
Oh, okay,
it's like you get into a taxi and you're like, all right, mate, how you doing? That's.
I don't do
But
that.
on your answer machine.
Yeah, well, I start speaking like you.
This is Simon Evans.
Yeah. Hello, exactly. We all code switch. But she's talking about it like, this is what she says, every black person is taught. Now, human beings, that's what we all do to a degree. And it also just shows real disrespect for her work. She's talking about how everyone in her office owns yachts. Where do you work?
Yeah, and also she says she's too poor to own anything, to like go to
ever go on holiday
or ever go on holiday. It's like, how come you're working with these people? They own yachts and go on skiing trips and stuff and make so much money. One of them buys a new car every year for no reason. I think she's continuing.
And she says she comes back from the weekend. She says, what'd you do? I went to Waitrose.
Yeah,
and I went, white.
That is it for this evening. Well done, lads. You dragged it out. Thanks to my brilliant guests, Leo Kearse and Josh Howie. Headliners will be back at 11 tomorrow with Andrew Doyle in the big chair, Roger Monkhouse and Nick Dixon on the little stools. Remember that Headliners is repeated at 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. If you're up and watching it at that time, thank you very much, and stay tuned for The Breakfast Show just after the break. I've been Simon Evans. Thanks very much. Good night.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.